You're about to become irresistible. And I don't mean irresistible in the shallow sense of being noticed for a moment, admired for a look, or praised for something temporary. I'm talking about a kind of irresistible that can't be ignored. A force that makes people lean in when you speak, remember you when you're gone, and feel drawn to your presence without even knowing why. Because let's be honest, most people spend their lives trying to be liked, chasing approval, changing themselves just to fit into the world's mold. They exhaust themselves trying to be enough for someone else, not realizing that true magnetism doesn't come from performing. It comes from alignment. It comes from owning who you are so deeply that the world has no choice but to feel it. Think about it. You've met people who weren't the loudest in the room, yet they carried a presence you couldn't shake. You couldn't stop watching them, not because of what they wore or what they owned, but because of what they carried inside. That's what makes someone irresistible. Not a mask, not a role, not an act, but energy, truth, power. And here's the secret. This kind of attraction doesn't start when others finally see you. It starts when you finally see yourself, when you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. When you stop apologizing for your voice and begin speaking it without fear. When you stop shrinking to keep people comfortable and finally allow yourself to expand. The irresistible person isn't perfect. They're not flawless. In fact, they've faced rejection, heartbreak, and failure. But instead of letting it break them, they turned it into gravity. They turned it into depth. They turned it into wisdom that makes others want to lean closer. And you, yes, you, are one decision away from stepping into that same presence. The decision to stop chasing and start attracting. The decision to stop trying to be everything for everyone and start being the truth of yourself without apology. Because when you do that, something shifts. People feel it. Opportunities find you. Relationships transform. The world begins to mirror back the worth you already decided was yours. You're about to become irresistible. Not because the world says so, but because you finally will. You're about to become irresistible, and the first truth you must understand is that being irresistible is not about beauty, money, or charm. Those things fade. They are surface layers, costumes worn for a season. What makes a person truly magnetic is something that cannot be taken away. It is presence. Presence is the silent power that speaks before you open your mouth. The energy that follows you into every room, the vibration that tells people, this person is different, this person is real. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And when you become that, fully, unapologetically, authentically, you unlock a magnetic field that no one can resist. Think of the people who have shaped history. Many of them were not the tallest, not the most handsome, not the most outwardly decorated. Yet people followed them, admired them, and gave their lives for their vision. Why? Because they carried alignment. They embodied what they believed. Their inside matched their outside, and people could feel the truth radiating from them. Jung often spoke of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we try to bury, deny, or suppress. The person who has not faced their shadow will always seek approval, always perform, always mask themselves. But the person who integrates their shadow, who embraces their flaws and still chooses to stand tall, becomes irresistible. Because they are whole. They are not pretending to be light. They are both light and dark, and that makes them real. Most people think being irresistible means trying harder. They wear masks. They overcompensate. They chase validation. But that only makes them more invisible, because desperation repels. The truth is, the more you beg for attention, the more you push it away. Real attraction begins the moment you stop running after it. You cannot chase and attract at the same time. When you chase, you hand over your power. When you attract, you command it back. And this is where everything begins to shift. There's a moment in everyone's life where they realize they've been living for others. Maybe it was in your teenage years when you wanted to fit in, so you silenced your uniqueness. Maybe it was in relationships where you lowered your standards just to keep someone from leaving. Maybe it was in your career where you hid your gifts because you were afraid of being judged. And in all those moments, your light dimmed. But listen to me, the very things you've been hiding are the exact things that will make you irresistible. Your scars, your passions, your quirks, your story, those are not your weaknesses. They are your magnet. People are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to truth. A perfect mask may impress for a moment, but truth stays. Truth lingers. Truth keeps people awake at night, thinking about the energy you carried. And truth only comes when you stop apologizing for existing and start embracing everything that makes you you. Imagine a woman who walks into a room. She is not the most traditionally beautiful, but she carries herself with quiet confidence. She doesn't look around to see who is watching. She doesn't beg to be noticed. She doesn't pretend to be smaller or bigger than she is. She simply exists with certainty. And suddenly, everyone notices her. Why? Because she doesn't need it. That is the paradox of being irresistible. The moment you stop needing it, it begins to flow to you effortlessly. Jung taught that we are often possessed by what we refuse to acknowledge. If you run from loneliness, it controls you. If you run from rejection, you live your life trying to avoid it. But once you turn and face it, once you look rejection in the eye and say, "You do not define me," you break the chains. And in breaking them, you rise with a presence that makes you untouchable. That untouchability is what people crave. It makes them lean in closer because they cannot shake the question, what gives this person such strength? Being irresistible is not about seduction, it is about sovereignty. It is about no longer being ruled by the opinions of others, no longer being enslaved by the fear of being unwanted. Because when you are free from needing to be chosen, you finally become the one everyone wants to choose. And that is the deepest secret. Detachment creates magnetism. Think of love, the person who clings, who begs, who needs constant reassurance pushes love away. But the person who can love deeply while still standing firm in themselves creates a gravitational pull. Why? Because we all crave stability. We are drawn to those who do not collapse when life gets heavy. We are drawn to those who radiate calm in chaos. That is irresistibility. And let me tell you this, your irresistibility begins the moment you make peace with yourself. The moment you stop fighting who you are. The moment you stop seeing your past as something to hide and start seeing it as the foundation of your power. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every failure, it was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you into a person with depth, with wisdom, with fire in their eyes. People are drawn to that fire because most of the world is asleep. And when someone awake walks among them, they cannot help but notice. You are about to become irresistible, not because you'll become flawless, but because you'll become whole. The cracks in you will no longer be places of shame. They will be windows of light. And through that light, people will see the strength, the courage, the authenticity that no mask can ever fake. You are about to become irresistible, and the process begins the moment you stop asking for permission to exist. Most people go through life waiting to be validated, waiting to be noticed, waiting for someone else to confirm their worth. They shrink in fear, thinking, what if I am too much? What if I am not enough? What if I am rejected? But here is the truth: you will never be irresistible while you are waiting for others to decide who you are. You become irresistible the moment you decide who you are, and the world is forced to adjust. Carl Jung understood that much of human suffering comes from living a life that is not aligned with our true nature. He called it the tension between the persona, the mask we show to the world, and the self, the deeper truth of who we are. As long as you are enslaved to the persona, you will be drained, anxious, and invisible. You'll be noticed, yes, but only for the mask, and masks cannot hold attention for long. But the moment you align with your true self, something happens. Your voice gains power. Your eyes carry depth. Your energy becomes undeniable. People sense it even if they cannot explain it. That is the essence of becoming irresistible, when the mask falls away and the real you steps forward. Let me give you a story. There was once a man who was overlooked most of his life. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the one others admired. But one day he decided to stop chasing approval and to start living with authenticity. He stopped saying yes when he meant no. He stopped hiding his passions because others mocked them. He stopped waiting to be invited to the table and instead built his own. And slowly, people began to notice, not because he was performing, but because he was glowing with something rare: truth. People are starving for truth in a world full of masks, and when they find it, they cannot resist it. Irresistibility is not about being wanted by everyone. It is about being unforgettable to the right ones. It is about carrying such alignment and self-respect that you no longer crumble when someone overlooks you. Because you understand that rejection does not lower your value, it only redirects your path. And once you hold that truth, you radiate an energy that draws in opportunities, relationships, and respect without force. Jung believed that the unconscious mind shapes most of our lives. The parts of you that you hide, the shadow, are often the very things blocking your magnetism. For example, if deep down you fear abandonment, you will cling to people, and clinging suffocates attraction. If deep down you fear not being good enough, you will overcompensate, and overcompensation creates tension that pushes others away. But when you bring those fears into awareness, when you embrace them and say, "Yes, I have felt abandoned, but I am still here. Yes, I have doubted myself, but I rise anyway," you transmute weakness into power. And that power makes you irresistible, because nothing is more magnetic than someone who has faced themselves and still stands strong. Think of it this way: the world is full of noise, full of people performing, full of masks. But when someone walks in fully aligned, they don't need to shout. Their silence alone speaks louder than others' noise. Their presence fills the room because it carries weight, depth, authenticity. This is why some of the most unforgettable people in history weren't entertainers or charmers. They were people who embodied a vision, a truth, a certainty. And that is what you are stepping into. But let me warn you, the path to becoming irresistible is not easy, because it requires shedding layers of fear, rejection, and conditioning. It requires standing in your truth, even when it costs you people who only loved your mask. It requires losing in order to gain, and many will not understand your transformation. They will resist it, because your growth will force them to confront their own stagnation. Do not let this stop you. Every time you let go of those who cannot handle your truth, you make room for those who are drawn to it. You will notice that as you rise, the shallow fall away and the deep remain, and the deep are the ones worth keeping. Being irresistible also means living with emotional sovereignty. Too many people are ruled by their emotions, easily controlled by praise and destroyed by criticism. But the irresistible person learns to stand steady in both. Praise does not make them arrogant, and criticism does not shatter them. They take both as passing winds, never allowing their inner flame to be extinguished. Imagine how magnetic you become when you are no longer at the mercy of external voices. You cannot be manipulated. You cannot be controlled. You become free, and freedom is the most attractive force on earth. Now think about relationships. Most people believe they must constantly give, perform, or sacrifice themselves to keep someone's love. But true irresistibility in love comes from being able to give without losing yourself. It comes from saying, "I love you, but I will not abandon myself for you. I care for you, but I will not shrink to make you comfortable. I am here fully, but I am still whole without you." That is what makes love last, because people are drawn to those who do not disappear inside them, but instead stand strong beside them. Irresistibility is also tied to purpose. A person without direction may attract for a moment, but they cannot hold attention. But a person driven by vision, passion, and fire becomes unforgettable. Why? Because purpose radiates. Purpose gives your life depth, and depth is magnetic. People may not understand your mission, but they will feel the pull of your energy. They will sense that you are not drifting but moving with intention. And intention is irresistible, because most of the world is lost. Remember this, you are not here to be liked. You are here to be felt. And when you embrace that, you stop diluting yourself for approval. You stop chasing validation that is cheap and temporary. Instead, you start radiating a frequency that calls in people and opportunities aligned with your truth. And those who are not aligned will drift away. But do not grieve. This is the purification process. To become irresistible, you must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to stand alone. You must be willing to walk away. And in doing so, you rise into a power that cannot be ignored. The irresistible person does not try to control others. They master themselves. They do not manipulate, they embody. They do not beg, they attract. They do not perform, they radiate. This is the difference between someone who is temporarily noticed and someone who is eternally remembered. And now I say it again. You are about to become irresistible. The process has already begun. You can feel it. You can sense that the old self who begged for attention is falling away. You can feel the rise of a deeper self, one who no longer hides, one who no longer waits, one who no longer fears. This is the self the world has been waiting for, and once you embody it fully, you will notice how doors open, how people shift, how opportunities align, not because you chased them, but because you became the person who naturally attracts them. You are about to become irresistible, and this journey is not about gaining something outside of you, but awakening something already within you. Too often, we believe irresistibility is about addition, adding beauty, adding charm, adding money, adding social proof. But true magnetism is subtraction. It is the removal of fear, the shedding of masks, the dissolving of doubt. The more you strip away what is false, the more radiant what is true becomes. The irresistible self is not built, it is revealed. Carl Jung spoke often of individuation, the process of becoming whole, where all the fragments of yourself, your conscious, your unconscious, your shadow, your light, come together in harmony. Most people never reach this place because they are too afraid to face the parts of themselves they've buried. But the irresistible person has the courage to look inward and embrace even the pieces others would reject. They know their insecurities, they know their wounds, and yet they carry them not as chains, but as badges of survival. That integration creates an authenticity that others cannot resist because it is rare. Most people are fractured. The irresistible person is whole. Consider this: the people who captivate us the most are not always the ones who have the smoothest paths, but the ones who carry stories of resilience. The scars on their soul make them magnetic. When they walk into a room, you feel the depth of someone who has suffered, endured, and risen. Their energy whispers, "I have lived, I have overcome, I know who I am." That is far more irresistible than superficial perfection. Think of Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison, unjustly confined. Yet when he emerged, he carried such dignity, such forgiveness, such strength that the world could not look away. Was it his looks, his charm, his wealth? No, it was the weight of his spirit. That is irresistibility, the power to hold steady through pain and emerge with light. And you, too, have your own prisons. The prison of doubt, the prison of rejection, the prison of fear. But every prison can become preparation if you choose to rise instead of collapse. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every loss, it is not meant to bury you, but to carve out space within you for something greater. When you rise from those ashes with dignity, you become unforgettable. People will feel something in you they cannot name but cannot ignore. That something is resilience. That something is depth. That something is you. Irresistibility is also about energy. Energy cannot be faked. You can smile, you can dress well, you can say all the right words, but if your energy is desperate, people will feel it. If your energy is needy, people will step back. Energy never lies. The irresistible person does not chase because chasing leaks energy. They do not beg because begging lowers vibration. Instead, they embody fullness. They walk into a room not asking, "Will they like me?" but declaring silently, "This is who I am." And that energy, steady and unapologetic, pulls others in. Jung taught that what you resist persists. When you resist loneliness, you radiate fear and push people away. When you resist rejection, you bend yourself into shapes that suffocate attraction. But when you embrace these fears and allow them to exist without owning you, you become free. And freedom is magnetic. The irresistible person is free within themselves. They no longer carry the chains of insecurity that weigh others down. They move with lightness, and people are drawn to them without knowing why. Think about someone you've admired from a distance. Maybe they weren't the most outwardly perfect, but something about their calm confidence, their laughter, their way of moving made you want to be closer. That is the power of energy, and that same power is already inside you. It will awaken when you stop resisting your flaws and start embracing your essence. Now let's speak of love. In relationships, the irresistible person is not the one who sacrifices everything to keep another's attention. That is desperation, and desperation destroys attraction. The irresistible person is the one who loves deeply, but without fear, who gives fully but without losing themselves. They know that true love cannot be forced. They know that clinging suffocates. They know that real intimacy requires freedom. And because they know this, they carry an aura of strength that draws others closer instead of pushing them away. Imagine this: two people are in love. One constantly fears abandonment, checks the phone every hour, panics at silence, demands reassurance. The other says, "I love you, but I am whole with or without you. I choose you, but I do not need to lose myself for you." Which one is more attractive? The second. Always the second. Because security is irresistible, and you will become that person, not through arrogance, but through self-possession. But irresistibility is not only about romance, it is about life itself. When you live with passion, when you pursue your vision, when you carry yourself with purpose, people cannot ignore you. They may not understand your dream, but they will feel the fire behind it. The irresistible person is one who wakes up with intention. They don't drift aimlessly. They don't waste years waiting for life to happen. They live fully, and that fullness is contagious. People are drawn to those who are alive, because most of the world is asleep. Jung also said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Becoming irresistible means taking back the steering wheel of your life. It means no longer being controlled by hidden wounds. It means becoming conscious of your patterns, healing them, and choosing differently. When you become conscious, you become powerful. And when you are powerful, people feel it. Now imagine yourself a year from now, living in full alignment. You walk into a room without shrinking. You speak without fear. You carry yourself with calmness and certainty. You no longer waste energy on those who do not see your worth, because you have already claimed it. You radiate truth, and truth is irresistible. Doors open. People remember you. Opportunities find you. Not because you begged for them, but because your presence itself became the invitation. But here's the final secret. Irresistibility is not about being loved by the whole world. It is about being so aligned that the right people, the right opportunities, the right love cannot help but find you. And the wrong ones fall away because they cannot breathe in the atmosphere of truth. This is not loss. It is purification. You are about to become irresistible because you are about to stop hiding, stop apologizing, stop waiting. You are about to embody your wholeness. You are about to rise with power. And once you do, nothing and no one will be able to ignore you again.